those are my 4 core philosophies. Do you want me to still keep taping this for you as we talk about my website?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any questions on those?
Nope, I'm tracking.
You're tracking, beautiful.
Hmm.
I yes, I have many business emails, but I forget and I send you stuff from my Gmail because they all dump into my Gmail. And so you'll see that my Gmail address is Jenny Drinks Coffee. So yes, ma'am. And this morning I didn't get my full cup of coffee because I had to be out of the house early. Okay, so what I want to show you now is how
Hmm.
I help you audit proof your hours. And beautiful. Before I start this, how did you find me? Did I
There is a site that says ABA Centers Resource.
Yeah. Okay, and so I'm
Hmm.
on their list that says I'm licensed in Maryland.
Yep, and you have to Google it, and only thing it was more of a lot of praying and saying, "Okay, I need hours." How do you do that? Where do
Yep.
you go find hours? That was the Google question, and that's how I came up with you.
Wow, love that.
Hmm.
Okay. That works.
I know, I know.
So this is my web portal. This
Okay,
is, you'll see it says template. This is a sample where you'll get a personalized one of these. And you'll notice this says that I'm in preview mode, and that's because I don't know how to make myself an account that I can find. I get you guys your accounts and then you show me what you see. So like I said, we're in month number 2 of beta testing this thing.
okay,
So what is in here? What is in here? You'll end up, these are called products, right? So your
hmm,
curriculum is a product, your group supervision curriculum is a product, and then your monthly audit proof tasks is a product. So you'll end up with 3 products in here. These 2 are still totally in development. There's nothing there. So I think if you click on them, it goes nowhere. But
okay,
this monthly audit proof is what I want you to see. And so what it has is, here's where you'll find your form that has to get signed every month. Okay. I track everything off of an agenda. And so if you click on your agenda, and I hope these links go somewhere.
hmm. It's okay.
Yeah, look at that. Okay, so there's an agenda in here. We
Okay,
track um your schedule, the beginning of the month, all of these things in these charts, all of this stuff up here. This is stuff that your handbook says we must write down every time we meet.
okay,
And fun fact, actually, one of my trainees and I participated in a PhD dissertation research project. That's a mouthful. Katie Greeny, and I don't think that's her last name anymore. I think she got married right at the end. But she sent out um, an email to supervisors and said, "Hey guys, take this survey. Tell me what's the hardest part about trainee supervision." And hands down, we all said organization, right?
hmm,
Being able to pass that audit and track the 1,000 things that the board says they wanted. So she did her whole thing on evidence-based practice to help us all get organized. She came up with this supervision agenda, trained us how to use it, did the fidelity checks, did the retraining, showed us what we did wrong. And at the end of it, I said, "Katie, I love this. This has streamlined everything. Can I keep using it?" And she said, "Yes. If," and here's my if, "I leave her her reference to her dissertation on the bottom." And somehow when we went to the web portal, it disappeared. So I have a little post-it note right there that I got to go figure out how to get it back on here. But anyway, that's where this came from. It's not
okay.
just Jenny being insane over boxes and stuff. It's Katie's PhD, which she passed, and she's now Dr. Katie out there somewhere doing something awesome. So back to this. At the beginning of the month, we set your whole schedule, dates and times. I prefer regular sessions that, as long as we can, we do Tuesday mornings, Tuesday nights, whatever the day is, we pick a date and
Okay.
time and try and stick with it. I understand blizzards, I understand wildfires, I understand vacation, I
Hmm.
understand illness, whatever. So yes, there will be flexibility and things change, but the more consistent we can keep it, the better it all is for everybody. Okay. While I'm here, let me talk to you about this. You will start off doing one-on-one with Jenny for the first 4 to 6 weeks of supervision. During that time, I'm going to drill more of my core philosophies in you. I'm going to make sure that we've talked about how our philosophical underpinnings fit in your current job, whatever that may be, and how we find the ABA and teach you to ABA yourself and then start in those things around you and your job. And learn how to make all my trackers work. Once we
Got
get
it.
to that point, typically by about 6 or 8 weeks, depending, finish the sentence, Jenny, then we start doing group twice a month. Group has its own curriculum that I showed you briefly in that web portal. In
Hmm.
group, we go through soft skills and giving feedback, then how to take data, how to do an assessment, how to write a program, how to train a program, and how to be a supervisor. So, and then as a group, you have access to other trainees in case you need them for a training opportunity. Sometimes they're parents, sometimes they have totally different jobs. They're not usually behavior technicians. Um,
Hmm.
but group is fun, and the feedback that I get from my trainees is that they all absolutely love group. Okay, so that's why there's some group on here.
Okay.
Then the rest of this, I'm not going to go over today.
Hmm.
If at the end of this you go, yeah, I'm kind of interested in this, I'm going to give you access to the sample supervision web portal, and you'll be able to
Okay.
come back and look through all of this. Okay. So we have the part of the agenda, the schedule, the meeting agenda that doesn't really change. It tracks your schedule.
Hmm.
We have meeting notes at the bottom. So every day that we meet, there has to be what did you do and what was the feedback. That doesn't fit in that pretty little chart very well. So
Right.
down at the bottom, we put all the narrative stuff. And then this just builds. So each month you get a clean one up at the top. And this thing, if you wanted to download it and print it out, becomes 100 pages by the time you're done.
Got it.
Part of what happens in audit proofing your hours is when the board says, hey, you're the lucky winner, send us all your stuff, you have to upload everything in one PDF document. And
Hmm.
so we used to do every month you got a new agenda, but then it was like, well, how do we put those all together? And so that fixes that problem. Okay. We're back here in the web portal. We are still under your monthly agenda. There are typed words if you like to read, and then all of these have little training videos where Jenny pulls it up on the screen and shows you in much more detail. I think this one's
Hmm.
45 minutes long, why we use the agenda the way that we do. You'll hear this from me on our first supervision session. I'll bring you back to all of our trackers and documentation and try and explain and walk you through every week until it's clicking. But you also have these training videos in here where you can go back and see them as many times as you need to. Okay. And then there are training attestations and quizzes where Jenny makes sure that you get the high points out of that silly video and off the form so that we stay on the same page. Okay, so number one, we're going to learn your agenda where we keep all of our paperwork. The number two thing that the board says we have to have is a unique hours tracker. So you can find your unique hours tracker here. You've probably heard of Ripley's or some other thing, Sidekick, something, I don't know. There are a couple of apps out there that
Hmm.
are compliant. Jenny doesn't do compliant. Jenny does consultant understanding, and neither of them are consultant understanding. So let me show you my sample here. And the way this thing is set up, these first four columns are mandatory by the board. Any day that you want to count hours, you must have all four of these columns filled out. And this is a sample, and you'll see that there are blanks. This would have gotten kicked back by me every week saying, fill in your client initials or I'm not signing off on these things. So ABA, different from psychology, different from speech pathology. We don't have to do all these fancy formulas for statistical significance. We do visual analysis and we look at the thing and we tell you, are we doing it right or are we not? And I can look at this and tell you what we're missing, and it's quick and easy. Okay, so you will always fill out all four of these columns. The other things they say, this top header, trainee, supervisor site, supervision type, and then whether it's restricted or unrestricted. So that's all stuff that the board says we have to have. Now, this is Jenny, and I've never seen anybody else be as crazy as I am, but it makes you guys learn how to be consultants. So when you record your unrestricted time, these consultant activities. You break down your minutes and literally minutes. You can put 5 minutes in one of these boxes, so that instead of saying, oh, well, I did a classroom overlap, or I did an RBT overlap, or I did a whatever, I'm like, I don't know what that is, right?
Mhm.
You want me to sign off on this thing that I think you're doing good ABA. Well, I need more information. And you say, oh, well, I spent 15 minutes assessing the kids' skills each time the RBT pulled up a new program. And when things weren't going well, I had to design and help the technician know how to fix it really quickly. And each time we did a different program, I was looking at the last 3 data points and monitoring the data. And I go, oh, beautiful. Oh, and by the way, let my brain check out of all that heavy thinking. And I just implemented my program with this kiddo for 15 minutes, and we did some pairing and had some fun time, and it was great. And I go, beautiful. And then it totals over here, and you get your hour. So these things, one of the things you said on that questionnaire that you filled out for me is that you weren't totally clear on restricted versus unrestricted. And I
Mhm.
can tell you 90% of the people who sit across the screen from me are not, because when I say, well, what's your understanding of restricted hours? They say anything, anytime you're working with a client.
Yep.
And
That's
I'm
what
like,
was told to us.
and that is not correct.
Mhm.
So my way of thinking about implementation is and think about it, a behavior technician is a high school degree, right? A high school diploma with 40 hours of very basic generic instruction.
Mhm.
Okay. So if a high school kid with this very basic instruction can do the thing, then yeah, you can call that implementation. If you, with more training and more experience and more supervision, are thinking, oh my gosh, I've done this program with this kid for 5 weeks now. Why the flip is it not working today? You have crossed this line and you are now doing assessment. You are now doing unrestricted, even though it looks like you're sitting there playing blah, 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 blah with the kiddo. But for Jenny, you're going to count it as the unrestricted consultant time. Okay. That's why we are
Okay.
radical behaviorists, because what we think is just as important, if not more, than what we do. So when you're thinking assessment and
Mhm.
hopefully over here scribbling some notes, even though you're being paid in your job as an RBT, which you are, for
Mhm.
Jenny supervision time, you're going to count assessment. And then you figure out, oh my gosh, I just realized I came early because of whatever's mom's schedule change. And you know what? I bet this is this kid's lunchtime. I bet he's cranky because he's starving.
Mhm.
Hey, mom, did he eat lunch? No, well, get lunch when you're done. You're like, okay, so now go to the next column. Now we're going to do some program design. Great. I've got a kid who's starving. No wonder he doesn't want to play with me. What the heck am I going to do about it? How am I going to fix this? This is now program design. I don't want
Mhm.
to count bad data. I don't want the kid to hate me. I don't want this to just be a disaster day. How do I get this thing back on track? How do I up my reinforcement? How do I decrease my task demands? How do I go back to simply pairing and be able to write in my notes why? Beautiful. Now you've done program design. All the while, if you've been making notes, you've been taking data and monitoring data. And then Jenny's going to teach you, once you have, I don't know, if you use Central Reach or something like that and you pull it up and it says, here are the 5 steps to the program, and then you give
Yes.
them pluses and minuses, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
When you do those 5 steps of the program, somebody, hopefully your behavior analyst who is billing insurance for supervision of behavior technician time, should be completing a fidelity check on you. Is my technician implementing the program the way that I told the insurance we will, and the way that I trained the technicians to do it? When I had a clinic, we always tried to have 2 therapists on any given child, so that if Corey's out this week because of whatever, there's already somebody who's familiar with the kid and familiar with the program. So this thing where Corey's the only one that sees a kid, and so when she's out for, again, whatever reason, and somebody comes to sub and all the sub does is play and pair all day, yeah, no, I don't like that either, right? There should
Mhm.
be somebody else on the case that knows how to go in and work with this kiddo. Anyway, while you're being behavior technician in your paid job, I want you to be you, the consultant, looking at you, the technician, and going, Corey, that was really nice, girl. Corey, you missed step number 3, hon. Let's fix that. Corey, half that data looks good and half of it, maybe not so much.
Hmm.
Wow, great summary from mom. Awesome. So I teach you how to do the fidelity checks on yourself as you're working your job as the technician, but it all counts as unrestricted time because you're doing consultant work. Okay, so that's the
It
difference.
makes sense.
I don't care what your job is,
Hmm.
it's what do you think you're doing that matters. Okay, so this is your hours tracker. The majority of that is explained in this wonderful little 15-minute video. But I also do a class to really help you guys get your brain wrapped around unrestricted hours, right? How do you take your day-to-day life and ABA it and find consultant time there? And so I do a 3-hour masterclass that I have recorded. It's in here. You guys can watch it. If you spend any minute in my web portal, you write it on your tracker towards those 2,000 hours that you're going to accrue. So if you
Hmm.
have to watch these videos 1, 2, or 3 times, my rule, I have 2 rules. Number 1, I need a permanent product. Sometimes I provide you those. This class actually has a workbook. Let's see if this links. Yeah, look at that. So here's a 30-page workbook. You download the workbook and you fill it out on your tablet as you're watching this on your computer, whatever. Or if you're like pencil and paper, you print the thing out and you fill it out. You can watch this thing 3 or 4 times until it clicks. And if every time you fill out that workbook, I'm going to let you count those hours. Okay, so you got to have a permanent product. And then the second thing the board says is that it has to be clinically relevant. And you'll hear everybody's opinion on, can we count podcasts? Can we count YouTube videos? Can we count reading articles that are assigned by the university? And I'm going to tell you my answers. You must produce 2 things for me. Number 1, produce a permanent product. So when you go to university and you swap into how to do functional design and you read Dr. Iwata's paper on functional design or functional behavior assessment for individuals with severe self-injury for university, and you go, oh, but wait, Johnny over here has some pretty severe self-injury and this article is going to apply to him. So now it's clinically relevant, which is what Jenny does as clinical, and you fill out an article summary for me, and I don't care if that's something from university or if you use mine, you've now met my 2 clinical criteria, and that article that you had to read for university will count for supervision.
Got it.
Same thing as a podcast. People say podcasts don't count. And the reason is because they're one-sided. Your hours are supposed to be clinically relevant and interactive.
Hmm.
And so what I teach you how to do is hit pause and behavior skills training yourself, right? Back to self as client as you listen to that podcast. So if the podcast is how to do a staff training on XYZ with your behavior technician, and they say, determine the goal that you need or the skill you need to train, you hit pause and write down, train them how to take data. Okay. Play. First thing is do this, pause. Okay, I would do it like this. Beautiful. Play. Oh, second thing is, okay, pause. Oh, I would do that like this. And so you make it interactive. Talk to the podcast host.
Hmm.
Okay. Same thing when you're watching any of these videos with Jenny. Pause it. There's a place you can put a comment down here. It sends me a direct email. What the heck were you talking about, Jenny, at minute number 12 on this video? Great. Now I can get back to you, and it has just become interactive.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm not going to go through more of that, but let me tell you number 3, prove it tracker. I've also never seen anybody else do this. That's not true. Let me think where they went to school. It might be National University. Do you guys have to read articles and write an article summary based off of the 7 dimensions?
We haven't gotten there yet, but per this particular instructor, yes, we
Okay,
will.
okay, that's beautiful. That is because what makes us different as behavior analysts from just psychologists or special ed teachers or speech pathologists is
Mhm.
that we check boxes to make sure that our programming, our assessment, our training meets hopefully all 7 of those dimensions. Okay. Again, I'm not going to follow you around at your clinic. It's not likely that your clinic will ever let me see any video of what's happening inside your clinic. So, my way of understanding what you're trying to count as your daily 6, 8 hours a day comes from a combination of all of these trackers working together back and forth. And this form, where you will prove to yourself and to me that you're actually doing really good ABA. Okay. My trainees who do not work in autism settings love this form because when they write down that they are blah, 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 systematizing authorization utilization for big brothers and big sisters. And we're trying to figure out how do we write that in ABA terminology. And if the board wants to flag that activity and say that doesn't really sound like ABA, we can go from an hours tracker to with the same date, the same scenario over here, and you will walk it through the 7 dimensions. And if we have gaps, then you and I are going to figure out how do we fill in those gaps. And so what
So at
this
the bottom where you have example, is that spelled like that on purpose?
at the bottom where it's, oh, no, no, no.
Or
Like I said, I don't count out for typos.
oh, okay.
No,
I was like,
that's
is that something new
no,
that's
no,
coming out?
and
Okay, I
that's
was gonna
funny.
ask you how was it written? I was gonna ask you how
Yeah,
could you write it out? Okay, I
yeah,
see it.
that there's a Jenny example,
Okay.
there is a special ed example,
Special ed, I got you.
and depending on what you're doing, I can give you thousands of examples. So,
Okay.
and I know this is really small. Let me see if I can make it
No, I
bigger.
can read it.
Oh, you
I
can
can
see
read
it.
it.
Beautiful. Okay.
I can read it.
So, come on, Jen. Oh, and this one is not
No, push it back just like you had it.
I'm
Go right
trying.
back.
I
Yep.
got dry fingers today.
Yeah, there you go.
Usually there's a freeze pane on here at the end of behavior. So let me just freeze this. No, column D. Thank you. Eyes are tired. I'm out here in California where everything's burning down.
Mm,
I can feel
praying
it.
for you all.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and so I'm up north, just south of San Francisco in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
My sister's down in Pasadena, which Eaton fires over here, Palisades fires over there, and Pasadena's right
Yeah.
in the middle. So she's safe and good and all of that. Um, but yesterday they blew up. I don't know what happened. The Tesla battery plant 30 minutes down the road, and so now we have lithium batteries burning. Yeah, can you say bad news? And
Really?
apparently I'm just very sensitive to all this stuff in the air. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's go through this form. Okay, and I'm going to give you an overview. And you
Okay.
have 2 videos. You have a short 15-minute video that is just Jenny walking you through this so that your first couple of days of doing this, you can turn on the short video and Jenny's going to say what goes in behavior, what goes in applied, what's going to go in technological, and I walk you through it. And then there's another 2-hour masterclass that gives you the theory, the hour of radical behaviorism behind why this form works in the 7 dimensions, and then me walking one of my trainees in an hour how to complete the chart. Okay, so you have lots of training on making this work, and you and I will do this together for
Okay.
every session that we meet, probably the first 8 weeks, to make sure that you're getting these. Okay,
Okay.
so we look at the scenario. I didn't write one. What does it say? Jenny will, oh, this is on Jenny, right? I have my own
Mm-hmm.
tracker to make sure that I'm tracking your guys' stuff right. So I will open
Mm-hmm.
all of your monthly documents 2 days before last day of the month at 10 p.m. For 12 out of 12 months. And I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. So this is your observable measurable. What am I looking at and how am I going to measure it? So I'm looking at Jenny opening this. I'm measuring 2 days before, 10 p.m., 12 out of 12 months. So
Mm-hmm.
I can see it and I have my own little tracker. Beautiful. Applied says that we work on socially important goals. So the question you ask yourself is, well, who is this important to? Who cares and why? So it's important to Jenny to be organized for supervision, my business, my pays, my everything. It's important to the trainee so that we have clear expectations of what's happening, where your hours are, all your documents are current. Beautiful. I'd say that works. Okay. Next is technological, right? Our procedures are described clearly. So the question is, where is this repeatable procedure written down? And if you can, link it here. So yes, I have a tracker for that. We have a daily tracker where you would write the steps. If you look over here under the SPED, yeah, she's going to write. Yep, she's going to write different steps over here. So this
Mhm.
usually looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? What are those
Mhm.
steps or a link to another document? Then we do conceptually systematic. We want the interventions that we use, the behavior change method, to have been proven out in ABA research. So when you read that article on severe self-injury by Dr. Awada, and he says do 1, 2, and 3, you're going to
Mhm.
write those 1, 2, and 3 on our conceptually systematic list. And when you use those techniques in something else that you're doing, then we can put it in here, like using visuals, using reinforcement, pairing, using the PREMAC principle, self-monitoring, data collection, right? And so this may also be psychology. This may also be good special ed. This may also be good ABA. But what we're looking for is ABA articles or articles that would pass an ABA peer review, best practice, blah, 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 um, process. Okay. So we track these. If you're on your test content outline 6, these are typically from section B as in boy and G as in gopher, because those
Mhm.
talk about understanding and using the behavior change principles. Okay, so now we have a behavior, we have a program, we have all the nice ABA stuff that's going to help it work. And now we're going to collect some data. So analytic, right? Our decisions are data based. So the question is, well, where is this data being collected? And so you can link it here. And so this
Mhm.
is some graph down here. Is it that one? Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so there's a graph that links something in there. That's not this graph, so I don't know what that is, but whatever. We will teach you when we get to graphing, either graphing in
Okay.
university or graphing in group or one-on-one, and we'll graph all this stuff and track your daily data. And then we graph your data so that, again, we can look at it. If I want it to improve, is my trend line trending up? If my trend line is trending down and I want some behavior to increase, I don't have to be statistically significant. I want this and it's going like that. I know we're wrong. I got to look at my program and fix the thing. And then our last dimension is generalization. We try and teach things once and have them apply to 3, 4, and 5 places, people, activities. And so when we write programs from the beginning, we want to think about how are we going to transition this to other people, other places, and other activities. And so these are the 7 dimensions. Now you say, Jenny, great, that's this cool little form. What the heck do you do with it? So the expectation is that you complete this form 1 time a day. Okay, you're going to do 100 activities during a day. You're going to write all sorts of stuff. Let's see, is this an hours tracker? This is not a good one because there's no activities in here. All right. Activities. So small group reading blocks, direct social skills instruction, skill instruction on computer, discrete trial with IEP goals and objectives, daily greetings and interaction, social skills. Okay, so these were the activities that she was doing. Every one of these activities,
Mhm.
time you finish, a year and a half, 2 years, however fast you want to do this, small group reading block, that should show up on your prove it form. That sounds like
The form
special.
we were just looking at.
Yep, the form we were
Okay.
just looking at.
Okay.
So that again, if we get to the place where the board is going through your documents with a fine tooth comb and they
Mhm.
say, well, this sounds like special ed with IEP goals, how do you know it's ABA? Then I can go over here. And like I said, I don't think this one is on here. Monitoring social skills instructions. Okay, so whatever. A greeting, right? Here's the greeting.
Mhm.
Use of the communication device, important to all these people. Here's the technological, here's the conceptually systematic. So they would look at this and go, oh yeah, look at that. You got 7 out of 7. And it'd be better if we had a graph over here.
Right.
and a real data sheet. But this is where you're going to start. You're not going to have all the stuff at the beginning until you learn those things at university, and we carry them over into supervision, and then we'll start adding those things into here. But we know that you're student trainees. We know that you don't know all the things. So if these aren't perfect at the beginning, that's okay. We go in, we talk about it, I give you feedback, and we try and do better next time. But one activity a day, spending no more than 15 minutes. And typically what happens when you guys start, you'll fill out maybe these first 3 or 4 columns, and it's going to take you 15 minutes to do that. And I say, good, stop, walk away, go do the rest of your stuff. You're in university, you have homework that that impacts your grades, that impacts your exams, that impacts your everything. So university happens first, and then supervision happens second after that. But if you stop here, it shows me that that's what you could get done in 15 minutes. And then hopefully 2 weeks later, now you're doing, the first 5 columns. And then hopefully at university, you've learned some of the behavior skills stuff. So now by week 8, you're filling out, more columns. And so this is not that it must be complete, because again, this is my visual analysis that when I go, we are 12 weeks in and Dr. Corey is still working on the first 3 columns. I don't know, Jenny checked out somewhere, but we should have been fixing this a long time ago, right? And so this gives me this nice visual of how you're doing with your skills.
Gotcha.
And now if anybody walks by and says, why are you counting greetings as ABA again? Why, as a paraprofessional, right, why do you make me stand at the door and go through this 10-step thing with every kid that walks in my door?
Mm-hmm.
By the time you graduate supervision, you'll be doing what we call audio prove it. So this is your prove it form, right? You're proving you're
Mm-hmm.
doing good ABA. We're going to do audio. So you're going to get your phone out and you're going to send me a voice text. And you're going to say, Jenny, the scenario I'm looking at is blah, 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 blah. The person I'm focusing on is blah, 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 blah. The behavior that I want to see is blah, 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 blah. This is important too, blah, 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 blah. The steps that we are taking to achieve this are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The conceptually systematic ABA technologies that we're adding in are blah, 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 blah. My data is being graphed on this data sheet, and once a day, twice a day, whatever. And the graph
Mm-hmm.
that's attached to it shows that we are trending upward at a nice clip. And I've already started generalizing this to class A, class B, class C. And literally, you guys get so fluent at this skill, call this case conceptualization as a behavior analyst, that you can talk to anybody about what you're doing and in 2 minutes explain why you just need to back off and let me do my job, because this is good ABA, and pay the insurance claim and don't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
All with
Mm-hmm.
nice, loving, caring, compassionate attitude. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys get that good at filling this thing out.
Okay.
And that's what gives me peace of mind, if you will, that when you guys are putting things over here like social skills and greeting and cafeteria oversight and bathrooming, that we're just not doing anything, but we're doing ABA because you've systematized the thing enough and you've got pages of data and all the stuff that I'm like, good, let's keep doing that. I have one guy that's a behavior technician, and when his kid doesn't show up, his client, then he goes and picks up hours as a security guard. And I'm like, dude, not the same. You got to prove to me that that security guard job, that you have systematized that and you have data.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we did. We task analyzed. What do you do every 30 minutes? Well, I walk the perimeter.
Walk the
I
perimeter. I was just trying to say walk the perimeter.
Right, I walk the perimeter,
Mm-hmm.
but in doing that, I check for these 10 things. And if any one of these things flags, then I have a subset. I do these 5 things if this one flags. I do these
Mm-hmm.
5 things if this one flags. And I'm like, you got to fill out the data sheet or I'm not going to let you count the hours. So he's struggling with the data sheet because he doesn't want to carry it around as he's working, midnight to 4 a.m. But I'm like, dude, you got to do it, because otherwise I have no idea what you're doing out there.
What you're doing.
Check the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will sleep at night and you will not be mad at me.
Right.
Check
Right.
the boxes. Okay. Okay. And again, lots of training opportunities.
Okay.
The rest of this stuff, again, I'm going to give you access to this and you
Okay.
can look through it. I have a tracker for your monthly client observations. I have a tracker for all this daily data that we're merging all of these forms.
Hmm.
You have a test content outline 6. So the current thing as of January 1, it's a self-assessment that we go through on about a quarterly basis to make sure that you and I are tracking and our expectations are the same of what we're working on, what we're learning, what we still have to fill in. And then there is a monthly audit proof checklist. This is what I fill out on you guys every single month. Now, that is my job. That's what you're paying me for. But by the time we're 6 months into this, you
Hmm.
start filling this out with me because, again, I want you to become the supervisor as well as the consultant. And this is a together kind of job that, yes, it's on me to audit proof your stuff. But if your supervisor had given you an audit proof checklist that you guys filled out together every month, then maybe you would have captured some of these hours by saying, look, you didn't
Hmm.
in my paper. Or look, we didn't write anything down at that last meeting. Or look, we only got 3 visits this month and we need 4. So I want you guys to know all of the must haves so that nobody's caught off guard like this. Phew, that was fast. Okay, questions on
Nope.
this?
No, it's easy.
Yep, it's at least
Yep.
there for
It's
you.
self-explanatory.
I hope so.
It
Okay,
is.
then, so then at this